We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled to introduce to you our brand new mission partner, Jonni, the founder of Differently Abled Entertainment. Jonni, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Zach. Thank you so much for having me on here and for, having me join as a partner with your amazing community. Pay it forward. I'm so excited.
Look, this is one of the reasons why when I heard your story and your dedication to this and your reasoning, which we're going to really get into, because I'm thrilled with the way that you put it. To me personally, you are one of your story and your dedication to people who are differently abled, disabled, or just need something additional, but they're not different. I mean, they're no more different than anybody else. Every single one of us has different abilities. And you know what? I told you we were going to get into this a little bit later, but let's go on ahead and do it now. Um,
Yeah.
the name, you've got a lot of kickback on the name, which is really surprising because if you think about it, differently abled is not, you're not trying to classify someone. You're just, I mean, it's an admission that everyone has different
Yeah.
needs for ability.
Yeah. My whole thought process behind it, honestly. Because I was injured when I was 16. I'm now 42, so I've been 25 plus years, going on 26 years in a wheelchair. And, when I first said it, I thought I was being really clever and I thought
Yeah.
I had come up with it all by myself. I'm like, I'm differently abled. I just got to do things differently now, because and not that I think there's anything wrong with being called disabled. I have a disability. Like, I don't have a problem using those terminologies. But like at some things though, I mean, sometimes it does have like a more of a negative context, or I guess how society views people with a disability. That's where there's kind of an issue. And so, but there are some people within the disabled community that do feel that differently abled is a slur. And I meant no offense to anybody when I decided to name my organization Differently Abled Entertainment. Um, but my whole approach is it's not just representing the disabled community. It's really, we are about representing marginalized groups and those that need better representation in the entertainment industry. Yeah, we did start out, kind of, from my own personal experience. Yes, I am from the marginalized group of the disabled community, but I also fall into a couple of our other marginalized groups that we deal with. I mean, we deal with low income families, LGBTQ, people of color, veterans, a wide range of people that just need better representation and that have had a different approach to life, that they've had to go about life a little differently in order to succeed, in order to follow whatever it is that their aspirations and their dreams are, trying to push them towards. And so that's when I say differently abled, it's really everybody, because I'm pretty sure everyone in the world has had some kind of struggle or something that they've had to overcome or something that they've had to approach differently in order to be successful at it. So that's my whole reasoning behind the name of the organization. It doesn't just represent the disabled community. It's about everybody. It's about everybody. We're all a little different.
Yeah. And see, Jonni, look, here's a story that I'll just tell from the weekend. Uh, we were doing yard work, and I take care of my parents who are older. And my my mom and dad were in the yard because they love doing yard work. Mom fell again. She fell. And we kind of had to get on her and tell her, look, Mom, before my accident, if you would tell me to go out and lift a car, to move a car, I would lift that car and move the car. Okay, before my accident. I'm no longer
Mhm.
able to do that. She has problem with bone degeneration. She's got problem with her legs and stability and everything. She has had to have a
Mhm.
couple toes removed due to this bone issue. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? She doesn't have the balance anymore. We had to tell her, look, you are not able to do what you used to do. Guess what? I would love to go to heavy metal concerts
Mhm.
still. I can't do that because of my head injury anymore. Not
Mhm.
that not that I loathe that fact, but the fact is that I am now differently abled. I am no longer able to do that. We are all, every single one of us, and this is why I love your point. Every single one of us has a different need to be able to do something. Fulcrum and lever as opposed to brute strength.
Mhm.
Truth is what it is. And it is, to me, it is actually kind of sad that some people don't accept that this is not an insult, this is a truth. We are all differently abled, every single one of us. When
Well, it comes from those people that don't understand, like, my perspective, that it's an everybody thing, and
Mhm.
they take it more as it's like that there's a
Classification,
problem using the word disabled,
right?
and there isn't a problem with the word disabled, you know. I just, for myself, I use both, you know. I don't necessarily refer to myself as differently abled usually, but like, because it's more of kind of like a jokingly thing, of like, yeah, is kind of where it came out. And it's more of like, that's for everybody. When I'm referring to my disability, I say, I usually refer, I don't, I'll tell people I'm a paraplegic. I'll tell people I have a spinal cord injury. I'll tell people more specifics about, like, you know, what it is. I don't really, unless it's a form or something, I don't use the word disabled to really represent myself. I'll tell people I'm a paraplegic, I'll tell people I'm a wheelchair user. I tell
Yeah.
people a lot of things. And but because for me, like I said, I mean, in disabled, I do use it when I have to use it because that's the proper terminology. And I'm kind of big on, syntax and terminology and all that. But really, like I said, for me, myself, I still do most everything. I'm lucky enough to where my spinal cord injury was very low. And so I still have all of my core muscles. I still have full upper body strength, and I was lucky enough to where I didn't sustain a head injury. There's many things that I feel very blessed about when it comes to my injury, and things could have been so much worse. I mean, that's always the thing, and that's how I look at it. But I've gone on with, my life pretty much in the same trajectory, I think, as any other person would. I'm just a person just like everybody else. I've had my struggles, but you know, life goes on. I had kids, I went to school, I've done businesses, I've
That's
worked,
exactly where I was going to go with this.
like, I've had to approach life differently though. I mean, because it wasn't easy. There are a lot of obstacles. The world is not very accessible, and a lot of people are very ignorant when it does come to the disabled community, and when it does come to, wheelchair users. And it it can be a struggle. It definitely has been a struggle, but it's like I have no choice but to live my life the best I can live it. And if I have to go about things a little differently, then I guess I have to go about things a little differently, because I'm not going to just give up on my life and my dreams and where I see myself. Like, I am still the same person I was before my accident. And those people that are, born with some form of disability, they're no different either. They're people just like everybody else. We are all just human beings trying to do the best we can do in this world. And and everybody, and I don't care if you're able-bodied or disabled, you give 5 able-bodied people the exact same task, and you say, I want you to do, and you just tell them from point A and where their end point is. And I bet every single one of those 5 people approaches that project differently, because we
Exactly.
all have different minds. We all do things differently, whether you have a disability or not, whether you can, because a lot of people, when I tell people everybody's differently, well, some people will be like, well, I'm not, they kind of get like, oh, like, because there's like this stigma with like having something quote unquote wrong with you, which, and I don't like to use that either, but that's a lot of the mindset that comes from the ignorance that's out there when it comes to the disabled community. And that comes from lack of representation, which comes from, I mean, and that stems into a lot of other communities. And that's why we are about representation for more than just the disabled community, but many marginalized groups, because there's a lot of people that just aren't understood. And the reason that they are not understood is because there's no representation for them, or the representation that is out there for them is stereotyped, or it's not proper. Like when it comes to the disabled community, according to Google, 26% of adults in America have some form of disability classified are disabled. That's over a quarter of adults in America. But we're only represented in film and TV 1 to 2% of the time. And 95% of those roles are played by able-bodied actors. So in the little, like minute amount of time that the disabled community is represented, we're represented by people that are not actually of the disabled community.
I, one of my favorite shows in the world, and is Justified, and one of the main characters is in a wheelchair, yet he is not somebody who is wheelchair bound. So uh, uh, I really want to get to the beauty of your life. But one of the things that I would just like to ask you, if this is kind of the way that you see it as well, using the word disabled, if you're introducing yourself and using the word disabled, is a scary thing sometimes, because it gives people that they have that little thing where they sit there and go, oh, shoot, what can this person not do? They hear that word disabled, and they're
Mm-hmm.
already throwing in their mind, well, can I hire this person, because are they going to be able to handle what? I hate using the word I am disabled. I have a disability with my head injury. I have a disability. That doesn't mean I'm disabled, because I can do a hell of a lot more than you think I can do. I may
And it's
struggle.
interesting how people hear those 2 words and they think about it differently. They
Yeah,
really do.
yeah, yeah.
Because
It's like,
yeah,
well,
like you said, when they hear, a disability, they're like, oh, okay, well, it's a lot different than being fully disabled.
right,
Because to them, if you're fully disabled, then that means that you're fully incapable of, you know, performing, basically, is that thought that's behind there. And it
right,
is, it's interesting because um, I drive a car. And so I'll be out somewhere and like at a gas station or something, and like I'll have my mom with me who has to use a walker. But like it's a lot easier for her to get out and help pump the gas than it is for me to get my wheelchair out and get the whole thing out. But people see me driving and they see me, and they're like, they don't think there's anything wrong with me. And so there's been many times that I've gotten some really interesting crusty looks, and I've been told like, why aren't you getting out to help? You should get out and pump your own gas. And I'm like, well, I'm actually a paraplegic and my wheelchair's in the back. If you want to get my wheelchair out, I guess, like, you want to help my mom get my wheelchair out, because that's a whole thing too. But people don't assume or think that there's anything, even if there's plates or whatever that say, handicapped or whatever. Like, they just they see me from the waist up. They see me and I look able-bodied. And even like meeting people, even in networking calls and stuff like that, when I go to tell them that I'm the founder and all of that, And they're like, okay, yeah. And they see me. But then when I tell them that, oh, but I actually have a disability myself, they're like, oh, ah, like I didn't expect that, you
Yeah.
know? And it's interesting to me, you know, and that comes from the representation that we have had in the disabled community, you know? I mean, the reason that people think that that's all that we're capable of is because that's how we've been represented. You know, we don't have proper representation. I know of a lot of people with a lot of varying disabilities that have done amazing things and are very, very productive individuals when it comes to being members of the society. You know, there's this stigma attached to disability. And then there's also like the pigeonhole that unfortunately, because of insurance reasons and stuff like that, and what, you know, certain people are allotted to get and not allotted to get. And you know, when it comes to like supplies that you absolutely depend on, like these are things that, you know, sometimes we get those in the disabled community, we get kind of stuck in this cycle that you can't really get out of. And then people that are not really of that cycle don't fully understand how that cycle works and how you can be so sucked into it. And then there's like this stigma attached to that of, oh, everybody, they just want to mooch off of and get whatever they can for free and da 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 da. And there's just like this whole out, you know, human beings. I mean, from one extreme to the other, and we all have different minds, different lives, different experiences, different trials, different tribulations, different dreams, different aspirations, you know, like that's what makes humans so great. But at the same time, that's also by us being so different, it can be hard for other people to understand. And if you don't have any representation of what somebody could be, you know, and if they are only represented by able-bodied actors or whatever, you know, it's, you know, and you have people of different races playing people of different races, you know, especially when it comes to people of color, it's kind of like anybody with brown toned skin can play anybody. And it's sometimes that's offensive. That can be offensive to those people that are actually of a certain culture. You know, they want to be represented properly. People, you know, in the disabled community want to be represented properly. People within the LGBTQ community want to be represented properly. You know, you see all these, you know, shows and stuff like that about like transgender or, you know, gay, lesbian. And it's like a lot of times, you know, they're straight actors playing these roles. And so why?
Yeah.
Why is that? There's talented people from every community, and that's what, you know, that's what my organization is trying to help bring together and represent and give people a space to be properly represented, because it allows the rest of the world to have an understanding of somebody else that they may not have ever met or come across. If you don't ever see anything about anybody, then of course you're going to be ignorant if you meet somebody, because you don't know. I mean, you can't know what you don't know. And if you've never been seen, shown even kind of any kind of proper representation of something, if all you're shown is stereotypical stuff, like when it comes to the disabled community, I'm sorry, but a lot of the roles and a lot of the films, they're about the disability. They're not about the person. They're not about the person's journey. It's about their sickness. It's about their disability. It's about their injury. It's about their accident. It's about the thing that there's everybody, you know? And so that's what I want to see more of, is just proper representation to help other people learn empathy and compassion and just a little bit of understanding and awareness about things that they maybe not be exposed to in their just day to day. So
Well, I think this is an absolute perfect time to bring this around to differently abled entertainment. Okay. I want to list a couple things that make you who you are. One, you've already mentioned it. You're a mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're a mother. You love the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You are an inspirational person, and you are you're a heavily driven person to make sure that people understand your wheelchair is not your life. Your wheelchair is part of your life. It is not your life. So tell us, what is the reason behind differently abled entertainment?
So, and our mission is to promote and encourage differently abled artists in the entertainment industry by producing content featuring their talents. Okay. And so, yeah, we want to represent people. We want to represent them properly, and we want to give people a chance. And that comes from my own love of, like you said, I am a lover of the arts since I was very young, since before my accident. I was involved in, you know, choir, theater, everything I could be involved in, in the arts. And then after my accident, I mean, that love doesn't just go away. You don't just break your back and then all your love of everything that you've ever loved just goes with it. Like that doesn't happen. So, um, so I continued to pursue acting. And when I was in college, I had a theater scholarship, and the director she offered me the scholarship. And she says, with this scholarship, it's, you're assistant director of the theater department. The reason that I want to offer you this scholarship is because you're a very talented actress, but the world isn't very equipped for disabled actresses. And so I want to teach you directing and producing, and so then that way, if somebody doesn't want to give you a role, you can just do your own thing.
Yeah.
And that was the message that she gave me in college. And Pat Ennis, rest her soul, she passed away a few years ago. But she was a huge driving force in, a little bit of a reality check of like, hey, you know, like, yeah, you're talented, but there's going to be people out there that aren't going to be able to see past your chair. She put me in all kinds of roles that weren't, designated for somebody in a chair because she could see past that. I played Mrs. Cratchit many years. It was a repeated show, and they still do it back there where I'm from in Nebraska and Scottsbluff. They do Christmas Carol almost every year. And I played Mrs. Cratchit like 4 years in a row. And well, not in a row because I kind of moved away and then came back for a little bit. But anyway, I played it 4 times. First couple times, 2 years was in a row, and then the other ones were kind of spread out. But anyway, she had me play Mrs. Cratchit because she was like, to me, it kind of makes sense. She goes, there's something wrong with Tiny Tim. Why couldn't there be something, wrong with his mom? That we, it's not ever mentioned or anything like that, but she's like, it's never mentioned that she's not in a chair. And that's, that was her perspective, and that was kind of what I said. It's like, I think, from my chair, I've auditioned for all kinds of roles because I'm like, unless this role requires the actor to do jumping jacks or run the mile or jump hurdles or climb a mountain, I'm pretty sure I can play anybody
Yeah.
from a chair. It's like, it's just a matter of, a different perspective. And so, yeah, she gave me opportunities a lot of times, but then she was also, she goes, not everybody's going to be able to do that. Not everybody's going to be willing to do that. Not everybody's going to see that option, that it's even a possibility, because again, oftentimes people see the chair, they don't see the person. They see the disability, even if it's not a chair, could be a crane, a crutch, who knows what. Um, but so that was kind of a little bit of a wake up call. And then I was like, all right. And I got more serious about directing and stuff like that. And then a few years later after college, and I was pursuing some of I had basically had my dreams offered to me. I had this really great role offered to me. But I didn't have proper headshots at the time, and I didn't have a reel, and I was on, a disability income, which is hardly enough to even live on month to
Garbage.
month. And I was a
Let's
single
let's
mom of two.
let's say it. It's garbage.
Yeah, yeah. I was a single mom of two, and basically I couldn't afford all these things that I needed in order to be able to follow through with this, offer that came to me, and it crushed me. It absolutely crushed me. I mean, to the point there was other things going on, but like my mental health took a huge dive. I was suicidal, and I spent a week in the hospital, just trying to get myself to feel better and realize that life isn't over and life will go on, you know? And so that's something that I try to be very honest with people, because some people see me and see that I'm so upbeat and da 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 da, but I struggle. It doesn't mean that I don't still struggle with things, and that I don't get frustrated with life sometimes, and that I don't have my moments of depression, and I really struggle with anxiety. And that's something that I try to be very honest with people about, is like, yes, I try to be upbeat, and I try to just keep on keeping on, because that's what helps my mindset. Because if I didn't do that, then, I mean, to be quite frankly blunt, I would not be here right now if I didn't have that ability to kind of pull myself up, and keep going despite, you know, life not being very friendly to to people that are in, that have, disabilities. It's a struggle. And so I went through that, and that's why, that's a lot of the reason, that, I mean, we offer, headshots, and we've done we've helped with music videos, we've helped with photo shoots for people, we've helped with all kinds of things to build up portfolios. And those that can't afford it, we have a very low fees. And then those that can't, we have scholarships for everything. And it's not really, I don't, it's just free out of us, like, basically, because we haven't really had any funding, so it's not like scholarships that are actually paid for by it's just, it will let you slide if you don't have it, because I don't want somebody that's talented, the reason that they're not pursuing their talents is because they can't afford a photographer, to get headshots, so they can't, send in things properly for auditions. Like, these are all things that, you know the industry requires. There's a toolbox, no matter what it is, whether you're in front of the camera or on the stage or behind the scenes, as an editor or lighting or whatever. You need a portfolio, you need a reel, you need promotional materials that show what you do. And if you don't have any of that for your personal self, you're not going to get anywhere. And
That's
a lot of
John
times
Wayne. John Wayne didn't start his career as an actor.
yeah.
He, he didn't do that. Let me ask you this. Are the resurgence of movies and shows that are switching characters? I think of something like Samuel L. Jackson as oh, God, what's his name in the Marvel thing, in the Marvel universe? Um,
Oh,
oh,
I
geez,
know. I can see him, the guy from Shield. I can
right.
see him.
Yeah, but originally that character in the comic books was white.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, they're changing that. One of the new series that's just come out is off of the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and you have a person of color and Oriental lady that are now Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So they're taking and they're redoing a lot of the casting. Hamilton, about Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton in history was not black, but now Hamilton, one of the uh, honestly, I've never seen it, but from everything I heard, it's amazing. Is this inspirational? Is this exciting to you because you know that there are rewrites of things that are coming out that could lead to opportunities for people?
Well, okay, so it to a certain extent, sorry about that. To a certain extent, yes. But I honestly, I'm not a big fan of all the rewrites. I would like, new original stuff, because like we have lots of, yeah, redos and new sequels of things that it's like everything from my childhood is getting like chewed up and regurgitated.
Annie,
Um and so I would like some originality, but I do recognize that a lot of things have been, whitewashed as far as Hollywood goes in the past. And so like the redoing of like Steel Magnolias and stuff like that, I have an appreciation for both, it doesn't bother me. Like Little Mermaid, there was a big deal, like the Little Mermaid, it doesn't bother me. Like none of that bothers me, and I think it's somewhat good to a certain extent. Like I said, I just wish there would be more just new stories, because like we don't have to remake everything, like let's just do some new stuff, and start a new thing with new everybody being more inclusive. Like let's do that instead of trying to remake everything that's already been done. So that's my opinion on that. And as far as Hamilton goes, Lin Manuel, uh I love, love, love Hamilton. I highly recommend it to anybody. Although I would say if you ever watch it, definitely the first time you need to watch it with the subtitles on. But again, yeah, no, like Thomas Jefferson wasn't black. Like, like these people weren't, but a lot of the history that is there is pretty, it's interesting. And like his whole thing was it was just about, having that different representation. Um and yeah, I mean it is different when you first watch it and you're like, okay, wait a second, like this doesn't totally compute because these people weren't of that. And but I don't know, it's just so
not only that,
amazing that it doesn't bother
the
me.
black
It doesn't bother me. And it's interesting um how it works. And for me, that representation of different, races and stuff like that. Although when it comes to, I like things to be kind of historically accurate.
yeah,
And so it was very much something that even still it kind of like collides within itself in my head, because of how like my brain works of like, wait a second, like I want somebody to look like the person that they're supposed to be representing, you know but for some reason, I don't know, with Hamilton, it just works for me. It's like I don't even care because it's just so amazing. It's like the most beautifully choreographed, and like the wording and just everything. I'm just like every time I watch it, I'm just in awe.
I'll have to
So
I'll have to
um
take and watch it.
and so it's like it's hard for me to be like, but it's like, but wait a second, because like, yeah, Thomas Jefferson and like all these people that are in it, like for me, it kind of it does kind of fight with me in my head, because I very much I love historical pieces.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for something, but I like it to be more accurate, historically accurate. And there's accuracy in there, and then there's also stuff that is just made up entirely just to make the story a little juicier. But because I've watched all kinds of behind the scenes of what's true, what's not true. But it just works though. And I think it's genius. I think it's genius. So sorry, I could go on about all
No,
that.
no, I'd be very interesting. By the way, Nick Fury is what I was looking for.
Yes, Nick
Um,
Fury, there you go. That's
and
the guy.
Yeah, you know, one of the other roles that I was thinking of earlier before I asked the question, of course, and then completely blanked it off, was they turned little orphan Annie, you know, her character, they ended up doing a remake with her being black as well. So, but once again, you don't see this a lot with people who are differently abled. So when it comes to people with disabilities, you don't see that a lot. Um, we
No, I have to give a shout out though to Netflix with a lot of their original
Yeah.
series lately. They have had a lot more representation and proper representation of just people like being people, being the people that they are in all kinds of interesting shows. And so I've really seen the disabled community especially, and just other marginalized groups, you know, really starting to be represented a lot on Netflix with their Netflix originals and stuff. So I, you know, from a fan and from somebody that's like watching for those kinds of things, because it is starting to happen more. You know, there is somewhat of a trend with representation matters, and so, which is good. We need that. We need that momentum of, you know, of it being trendy to have inclusiveness like that. That's a good trend.
let me ask you this question, and this is something that I was, you know, after our conversation started, I started thinking about him. Someone who I'm not sure how easy it was for him to get the role, but somebody like Peter Dinklage, he, you know,
Incredible.
he took a role that could have been very degrading, and he ended up turning that character just because of him and his power. He ended up turning that character into somebody very, very strong and a very, very strong character in the Game of Thrones. He did a
Mm-hmm.
great job, and this is somebody who all of his life has had to deal with being different.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like seeing something like that? Because let's be
Yeah.
honest, he is somebody who has to who's going to be simulcast or not simulcast, but uh
Typecast.
typecast. Yeah, typecast. He's going to be typecast, you know,
Yeah.
but he took this
Although I don't know, there's been a couple times that I feel like, I mean, he's played roles that could have been played by a full statured person, you
as
know.
the
Uh
scientist
yeah,
in
I mean, he's done some stuff that it didn't necessarily have to be, you know, a a little person playing the role. And I know some people don't like that terminology. I have a friend of mine, you know, he's like dwarfism, and he wants to be, you know, that's what he prefers to be called, and then that's offensive. And so I'm not trying to offend anybody when I say a little person. I feel like that's more of what's accepted. But yeah, whatever. Um, like he is an incredible actor. He is incredible. I have a list. I say my list of actors I'm gonna work with. He is high on that list of actors that I would be honored to work with, and that I have high hopes of getting to work with sometime in the future, because he's just incredible, and he's funny, and I mean, his timing is impeccable as a comedy, as a comedian, and then and his physical comedy is great. And then also when it comes to being serious and like being a powerhouse and being even a bad guy, I mean, he can just do it all. His range is incredible. And so, like, when I see him, I just, you know, like, I like to think like I look past a lot of things. You know, I have a lot of friends with a lot of varying disabilities, a lot of things, whatever. I don't see that. I just see the person that they are. And like, to me, like, he is incredible. And I pretty much have liked anything that I've ever seen him in. And, you know, and it's nice to see, you know, I mean, before him, there hasn't been a lot. I mean, we had Warwick Davis there, you know, forever. And, you know, but it's interesting that how it's like we have like this token one person, you know, like why is Peter Dinklage the only person that we can think of right now. Like, I'm sure there are other people of that community that are also talented actors,
Absolutely.
but we never see any of that. It's like it's like we decide that, oh, okay, well, then you have like this one token person that is like, that's like the, you know, I mean, as far as, we have Ali Schroeder in the, wheelchair community. She was the first person with a disability to win a Tony Award, and she's done a lot of movies and a lot of things, but like, it's like you can name the people, like pretty much, you ask people to like name actors with disabilities and they can name them because there's not very many. Like, if I,
Right.
it's a lot harder if I just, name every action actor that's ever acted in an action film.
Yeah.
You'd have to search it, and really think about it.
You're going to
Like,
start going down a list that basically never ends.
yeah.
Jonni, we all know, and here's the question. We all know that money is king. Differently abled entertainment also could use donations of.
Well, we are always looking for volunteers. And I mean, if you're local in Tucson, great. We also have a lot of remote things that people can help with. And then also we take donations of, in kind things, Um, we're always needing all kinds of stuff, costumes and stuff. I mean, if anybody, like I said, if you're in Tucson, it makes it a little easier. If not, I mean, shipping those things to us is an option. But we're always needing things for our events, things for our sets. We do monthly rummage sales to kind of help with our fundraising, because we're still just a baby nonprofit. And yeah, money is great, but there's a lot of other ways people can help. If you're willing to volunteer some time, or collaborate with an event, or, you know, there's all kinds of ways that people can help that's not just monetary. There's a lot of things behind the scenes as far as clerical type stuff, data entry type stuff, like things that, like I said, that can be definitely done remotely. Um, I have a very small team of volunteers. I'm fortunate with the ones that I do have, but I still definitely need a lot more. I still wear a lot of the hats when it comes to like our social media. And that's another thing. I mean, even if you don't want to be a volunteer and help with the things, just liking our page and, commenting on stuff and sharing it. Or if you know somebody, like, those of you that aren't, around the area, but maybe you might have family in Arizona, you could tell them about, like, hey, there's this thing in Tucson, for those that know somebody that's around here, but just liking and sharing and commenting and just getting us out there, because we do have hopes to expand. We would like to have chapters in other cities as we move forward with this organization. Yes, we're just pretty much based out of Tucson right now, but I've had volunteers in several other states already. And we have done one event to help like do some backpack stuff and some school supply stuff out in Nebraska this last year. And we're doing another one this July out there again, because we have some volunteers out there. That's kind of where I'm from a little bit. I'm from a lot of places, but like that's where I had my car wreck and graduated high school, and where, my kids were born and all that was out in Nebraska before I'm a transplant to Tucson. I've been out here for 8 years. But so that's where we're kind of, I would like to see us, be in the major entertainment hubs though, to start out with, like Chicago, New York, LA, Atlanta, Albuquerque, like Nashville, these, Houston, places where, music and movies and TV and all that stuff is, really popping and really happening. That's where I'd like to see our organizations spring up in chapters. So then that way, you know, the more representation, the better.
And let me go on ahead and throw this out as well. You know what? To everyone out there that is putting on shows or looking for, a certain talent or looking to create something. Maybe this is a conversation that you should be having. Uh, get a hold of
Yes,
them and see what. And even more important, if you're putting together a show, make sure that your show is accessible to everyone, because you've got to
exactly.
remember that there are people out there who do require ramps or extra wide aisles or seating arrangements.
Hmm.
It is a fact of life. It's a fact of life for them as well. They still love the theater. They still love the arts. They still love concerts. They still love all these things.
Hmm.
A wheelchair, a disability does not mean that your life is ended. It means that you now have something that you're learning to deal with, and it doesn't change your life. I mean, it changes your life, but it doesn't make you a different person. So just
Exactly.
be cognizant of all of this. So look, I mean, this conversation has been amazing to me, and one of the reasons why it's been amazing to me is we never even got to the accident. So, but the why don't you go on ahead and briefly tell us about the accident, because we've already heard all the amazing things. So let's
Yeah.
talk about real quick why you started, what happened to create this program.
Okay, so when I was a junior in high school, I was also a CNA at a nursing home. And I was on my way to work. I lived 15 miles out in the country on dirt roads in Nebraska. And I was on my way to work, and there'd been a lot of stuff going on in my life, some personal stuff, breaking up with a boy, studying for finals, high schooler stuff. But there was a lot. And I'd actually with my home life, and there was just a lot going on, and so I was thinking about all of those things. And the night before, I'd hit a soft spot in the road doing like 45. I had a 76 Torino, kind of fishtailed a little bit, so when you drive dirt roads you kind of remember those spots. So I was coming up on it, and I looked down, and I was doing 110. So I took my foot off the gas. I didn't hit the brakes. You know better than that. But I still, the car slowed down to about like 87, 88 miles an hour when I hit that soft spot in the road. It took me driver's side first into the ditch. And the ditches there, it's a wheat field. And so irrigation ditches. And so it's very steep. They're about 3, 4 feet, off the road. So that way, if it rains, the runoff waters the field. Um, so it clipped the front end of my car. My car did 3 cartwheels, and then and I was thrown because my seatbelt was broken, but it actually saved my life. And then the car kind of teetered on its front end and then came down on its roof on my right shoulder, and I was conscious through it all. I When I opened my eyes after hitting the ground and all that, my tire was spinning up by my head. And I was really close to being like completely crushed by the car. And I consider myself very lucky. Like I said, at the time I was a CNA. In order to be a CNA, like you got to go through a lot of nursing training, certified nursing assistant. Along with that is EMT training. And so as I was laying there, I kind of started assessing myself as a first responder. I started talking to myself in third person. I was saying, because at first when everything was happening and I looked, and then I felt it felt like my legs were on fire. I thought there was flames. I thought like the car was on fire, and I thought I was on fire, and I looked and there were no flames, but I couldn't move my legs. And I knew right away I'd broken my back. I'd been studying, and and I just knew right away what was going on. So I started talking to myself in third person, and I said, John Lee, you've broken your back. You're going into shock. You need to try to stay calm. Try to take a deep breath. So I took a deep breath, and I was pinned under the car, so it hurt and I couldn't get a very good breath. And so it you're there, and then I fought with myself in my head. Okay, well, I shouldn't move, but I can't breathe. Like, what do I do? Do I stay underneath the car? Do I get myself out from underneath the car? You know, I'm still 8 miles out in the country. Like, I don't know when somebody's going to be driving by. Like, I don't, this is 1998. I don't have a cell phone. Um, you know,
Yeah.
and so like all these things are going through my head. And so I grabbed a hold of the back of my right knee. I got out from underneath the car first. I like kind of slid, and like luckily the wheat field had just been tilled. And so the soil was soft. And I was able to kind of like get out from underneath the car, but it was still pressed like right up against me, and I still couldn't breathe very well. And so I grabbed a hold of the back of my right knee and I rolled over onto my stomach. And it was an hour and a half before anybody found me.
Um,
So yeah, and then when they got there, I told them, when the EMTs and all that got there, like I told them I broke my back in the lower thoracic, and they're like, "Well, let's get you to the hospital." And we get to the hospital. I told the emergency room, I broke my back in the lower thoracic," and the emergency room doctor, he goes, "How do you even know that word?" I said, "I have a physiology test tomorrow."
yeah, yeah, it is kind of doctors don't really like hearing that you know what's going on, I'll tell you that. So,
Yeah,
Johnny, thank you.
yeah.
I know that the accident probably not something that you would do again. Um
Yeah,
I
no,
tell
that's not something I put on my agenda, my
yeah,
to-do list, and I don't advise anybody else putting it on their to-do list either.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I tell people I tell them all the time, look, getting into business for yourself is a great thing to do. It's a lot of fun if you're driven, if you're patient, if you know what you want to do. Getting into business is a really cool thing to do, and I suggest doing it. Just don't do it the way I did it, because hitting a fence that hard hurts like hell. So
Yeah,
don't do it the way I did it, because it sucks. So, but look, I appreciate everything about you. I appreciate everything about what you're doing. I appreciate your values and I appreciate your drive. I am proud to be a small part of trying to make your dreams come true. By the way, you will see above Johnny's head, you'll see the QR code. If you like the story that you've heard, scan that QR code, make your shopping count, shop with any of our giving partners. And when you do that, when you use that QR code, you're going to be able to donate to Johnny and differently abled entertainment. There are other things that you could do to help. Reach out to her. Find her page on Community Pay It Forward .us. Find her page. Get into a conversation with her. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. We've spent about an hour here with her, and you've seen this. Imagine what else you can do together. So, uh, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to touch on?
well, just, thank you, Zach. Thank you for the opportunity to be, one of our sponsors and, our partners. I really appreciate that. Yeah, if our website is ourdae.org, like our belonging to us, OURDAE, for differently abled entertainment. We call ourselves DAE a lot. It's less of a mouthful. So ourdae.org is our website. And yeah, check us out. Get in touch on social media, whatever. On the website, there's a way to email me. Yeah, get in touch. Let's have some fun together, or let's get you some more exposure if you're somebody that's like, hey, I've worked with people, like I said, from all over. I offer acting classes virtually. As far as like resume building, help with promotion, help learning how to, market yourself on social media, stuff like that. Get in touch. Get in touch. Like
Mm,
there's people out there right now that need more of all of us, that need better representation. So
yep, and
get in touch.
collaboration is key. So
Yes.
let's
Let's
uh
let's all work
let's make
together and
this
make the
grow.
world a better place.
That's
And,
right.
and I'm just really appreciative to everybody that can see why this organization is needed, and because as far as I am aware, I'm the only one. I shouldn't say I, because it's not just about me. This is not the John Lee show. This is not the Johnny game. This is differently abled entertainment. I do have a team of people that help me get this, off the ground. It takes a team of people to do what we're trying to do. But what we're trying to do, I'm pretty sure that we're the only ones that are doing exactly what we're trying to do. So there's a few other people that kind of are doing a little bits and little bits and little bits, and that's all great too. But I'm pretty sure we're the only ones that are us that are
Oh, it's
doing
never
the
about
things
me,
that we're
it's
doing.
about we. So
It
let's
is. It's about all of us.
yep, let's get to work and try to help people in any way we can. Thank you. I
All right. Thank
appreciate it
you, Zach. I
so very
appreciate
much.
you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.